Mike Radich here, and I'm now joined on the phone by MMA Veteran Nate Jolly. Nate, how are you?
I'm doing all right. How are you, Mike?
I'm doing good. Nate, I've always been curious on how you got your nickname, Ladies Love. Just curious, how did you get that nickname?
Well, it's not as cool of a story as you might think. I was traveling up to my first pro fight, and we were jamming out in the car, and we were talking about LL Cool J. We're jamming old 90s stuff, and my buddy Dustin Walter was like, ladies might love that guy, but ladies really love Nate Jolly, and it just kind of stuck. I thought I'd come out for it for my first fight, and I broke a man's jaw that fight, so I decided it was probably a decent name to stick with.
Well, not the story that we thought, but definitely a good story, I'd say.
Well, yeah, I mean, I like to tell people, people say, I bet the ladies do, and I say, well, not every woman is a lady, and there's a good distinction there. You can't just assume that. I say if a woman is a lady and she doesn't like me, she's faking being a lady.
I see. Nate, you got a fight coming up October 18th at XFC 26. How's training been going for the fight?
Training's going well. My cardio's at a good spot right now. I feel like, I just got done with my 18th round out of 20, just to, kind of doing a light edge to kind of get the lactic acid out. But I feel good. I'm not cutting a lot of weight for this fight, and I'm really happy about that. It seems like, about the only time I lose, I have some weight cutting issue. And, I feel good. My strike's still strong. My takedowns feel good. And, my defense feels really good right now. So I'm confident and I'm feeling good. And I'm excited that Jared Hayes is, the guy he is and that he always brings it. I know we have a good chance to put on an exciting fight that we can both be proud of.
How many more days of hard training do you have left?
It depends on what you call hard. As far as sparring, I'll probably get into the last of that, maybe Friday or Saturday, as far as sparring. But, if I'm not cutting a lot of weight, I do some form of cardio just about every day. Including weigh-ins, and a lot of times I'll go on a little run in the morning, the day of the fight. I'm just kind of like that.
This fight is going to be taking place in Nashville. I believe you're from Johnson City, Tennessee. What's the distance? How far, Nashville, how far away is that from where you live?
About 4.5 hours. You could probably do it in 3.5, depending on whether you're a speed limit observer or not. But it's a good ways. But Nashville's a great city. There's so much stuff going on there. It's just an amazing city, and XFC has a great venue up there, so I'm more than happy to take the trip, even though, the next day I'm hosting an amateur show back on this neck of the woods.
Do you consider this, to the outside eye, you're fighting in Tennessee and you live in Tennessee, so everyone would say to you, hey, you're fighting at home, but since you have to travel that 3 or 4 hours, whatever it might be, do you consider this fighting at home? 99.9% of my fights are in somebody else's hometown, and that's just like this one, It's going to be in the state of Tennessee, but Jared Hayes is, from what I understand, a suburb of Nashville. So, even if I was kind of home, he's much more home. But that has nothing to do with the way I fight or anything. I enjoy a crowd. I don't mind being the bad guy. I think it's really cool when I can go in there the bad guy and leave the good guy while beating their guy. And that's my goal. Now you're going to be taking on Jared Hayes at welterweight. Just curious, why the move up to 170?
Some people don't have to deal with it, but, if you wrestle as long as I have and things like that, sometimes you get to a point where your weight becomes a second fight all in itself. And I wanted to go out and have fun, and I knew even when I'm on a really, really, really clean diet, making 155 can be a little difficult for me. I'm not a big guy. I don't know why it is. I have a great guy that I go to for nutrition. His name is Tyler Minton. Excellent. But for whatever reason, hanging out around the 155 weight class is just rough. And I feel like I perform better at 170. Oftentimes, I always train weighing somewhere around 170 to 180. And it just makes sense this time coming back to, do something at a weight where I'm comfortable and maybe give up a little bit of space.
Is this a permanent move up to 170, or is it just for this fight?
No, absolutely not. I think most fighters will say that they have times throughout the course of the year year, just in general, where your body kind of will be a little bit low or a little bit high. For instance, most of us around Thanksgiving and Christmas, if we take a fight and we're like, hey, man, could we do a catch weight a little higher? And some of that seasonal and, that sort of thing. But because of that, I wouldn't say this is a permanent move. I don't think I'm a world-class competitor at 170. But I do think that I can hang with some tough cats at 170. And right now, that's what I want to do. If the right comes on at 50, right fight comes on at 55, especially in the XFC, I would definitely take it. But this was taken on a little short notice as well, and so those are all things that contribute to this fight being at 170.
Mm-hmm. Your last fight was in May of 2012, so that's well over a year ago that you haven't fought. Just curious, what's been the holdup? Why has there been a layoff?
Well, I was at a point where I was training all the time. That year I tried to get, I think that was in May, and I'd already tried to get like 5 fights. And for whatever reason, they fall through from time to time. So I had been training for a fight for, probably 3 or 4 months. And, when you're training hard for a fight, there's a certain level of rest that your body just can't get. And I think I just succumbed to that. My body was exhausted. I was mentally exhausted with it. My girlfriend had just started fighting, and that was a different direction that, we were moving in. And it just, it was time to step back and let my body heal, let my mind heal, and decide, what I wanted out of this sport and what the sport had for me.
Mm-hmm. Just curious, you've fought, you've promoted, you've done some broadcast work, and you've been a referee. Just curious, what haven't you done in this sport?
I've done a lot. Before I did all that, I was on the cage crew. That's how I got half the fights in my amateur careers. I'd roll up and just set up the cage, and then a fight would drop, and I'd step up and take one. I don't know. I don't want there to be a lot of things I haven't done. When you really love something, it's like falling in love with a beautiful woman. You don't want to just know a part of her. You want to know every part of her inside and out. And that's how I feel about this sport. It's a beautiful sport. It's an amazing sport. It's a sport that can lift a lot of people up and bring them to a better place than they knew they could get. And because of that, I love it. And when you love something, you want to understand and be a part of every part of it. And that's how I feel about mixed martial arts.
Mm-hmm. What's your favorite area of the sport, and what's your least favorite area of the sport?
Ooh. Well, I love fighting. Mm-hmm. I'd say that being a fighter is probably my favorite. Closely seconded by a ref, but by being a ref, because that way I kind of get to be in the fight, and I get to be very analytical and just steady and steady. I'm still the closest guy to the fight. I'm still a part of it, but I'm not in danger. I get to be very analytical, and I get to be a helper. To me, a good referee is nothing but somebody that is there to help these athletes do what they want to do in a safe manner. So it'd probably be seconded by that. The thing I like the least is easily promoting. I lost a lot of people that I thought were so-called friends, and, people show you their true colors and you start dealing with money. And that's just a lesson I had to learn.
What's tougher, being a fighter or being a referee? Because on one hand, the fighter, obviously you're in the fight, you're getting punched, you're getting kicked, you're getting kneed, you're getting taken down. But the referee side, you're calling the shots. I mean, somebody's career, depending on if you make a good call or bad call, hangs in the balance, and also the health and well-being of the fighter is in your hands as well, seeing how much damage they take. So what's tougher, being the fighter or being the referee?
Well, as a fighter, I get to lay some responsibility in my corner's hands and the referee's hands. I get to let myself go. I have to trust the referee to let me go completely limp and stop someone before they kill me. But in that regard, there's a sense of freedom there. As a referee, you're right. Whether you make a good call or a bad call is, you're going to be scrutinized. Whether you make a bad call with great intentions, which happens often, you're scrutinized. And you're definitely messing with people's lives. So, on a certain level, mentally, wrestling can be a little more difficult. At the same time, as a fighter, there's a lot of pride that goes into this, and that can be difficult too. I don't know that you can answer that. Physically, obviously, I don't have to go through a fight camp every time I rest. As long as you can stay in shape and move good and keep your mind sharp, make good decisions, you can referee. So I would have to say fighting's harder, just because long term, how long can you fight? Randy Couture had to quit fighting. Randy Couture could start reffing right now.
Right. Just curious, how long have you been a referee?
I
started refereeing shortly after I started fighting. There were times often in the show where I put up the cage, so I fight would back out, so we'd shuffle the card around so I could fight first or second, and then I would rest the rest of the show. We'd do a quick intermission, I'd go back, change. I'd do the rest of the show. So, it's one of those things. I guess I've been wrestling the whole time, most of the time.
Mm-hmm. On average, how many shows do you ref a year?
It depends. Last year was really slow. I haven't refed a lot this year. A lot of this year and much last year. But if you catch me at the right time, I'm refing, twice a month.
Oh.
I don't know what's going on. So.
Just curious, I mean, you do so many different things, you wear so many different hats. You don't have to tell me exactly what you make, I mean, it's none of my business, but, what is the percentage from the different areas that you do in this sport? What makes up your income, if you don't mind sharing?
Promoting has probably the biggest potential, out of everything. I'm not one of these crazy great top-level fighters that is on the UFC, so I work a normal job. And then, if I make any money off of mixed martial arts, it's extra. But neither one of them is, has me driving some nice new car or anything like that. I definitely live a meek lifestyle, to say the least.
On October 18th, you're going to be taking on Garrick Hayes. What are your thoughts about him as an opponent?
I think he's a great opponent. He's a veteran. He's fought in some top-level shows. He's fought some top-level opponents. And I think that if I'm not 100% on my game, that I can get put in some really bad trouble. I have nothing but respect for the guy. My grandma always hates it when I'm fighting other black dudes, Says you shouldn't let people pay you for black-on-black violence. But, I've met him a couple times here and there. We've spoken on occasion. He's a nice guy, and, I have nothing negative to say about Garrick Hayes. I think he's a great opponent. I think he deserves to be on the level of show he's on. But honestly, I think we probably deserve to be at a better spot on the card if I wasn't coming off a loss.
Now, Garrick Hayes, his professional record is sub 500. He's 8-9 as a pro. What's one thing, or maybe multiple things, that record fails to show? I mean, obviously you've done your homework for this fight. You know him pretty well. What's something that his record fails to show? I mean, it's a sub 500 record, but whenever somebody gets in there in the cage, it doesn't really matter what your record is. It's whoever executes on fight night. So what's something his record fails to show?
I think it fails to show how tough and how explosive he can be. He's definitely one of those guys that you could be kicking his ass the whole fight, and if he explodes and catches you with something, you are caught. It may not have been working out for him in the past, but I don't want to be the guy that it starts working out for him all. I just think it doesn't explain that. You see some of the wins, and a lot of times you have to be very good to catch people in heel hooks and ankle locks and knee bars. But if you overlook that as just submissions and don't think that and delve into it, you might miss the fact that he's probably really explosive and he probably comes upon those transitions really fast.
Now, what's at stake for you in this fight? Is it a fight where, if you win, you move on, and if you lose here, it sets you, way back? Is it something like that? Is it, maybe bragging rights? Is it two Tennessee guys going at it in Tennessee? What's at stake for you?
There's nothing at stake for me. I'm going to go out, I'm going to have fun and do it I love doing. And win, lose, or draw, I'm going to entertain them all, and that's as far as I'm concerned about it. I could go out and knock out this guy in 7 seconds. I could go out and get blasted for 15 minutes straight. It may or may not have a decision on what I decided in this fight. That's why I took it on short notice. Hey, you know what? The fight came up. I felt a little piss and vinegar, and hey, I want to fight. And there's nothing else to it. I just want to go out there and fight. And that's part of the reason I'm glad it's not on the televised side in certain ways, because I don't have to deal with any of that other stuff.
On October 18th, how do you defeat Garrick Hayes?
I'm sure anything I said would go completely opposite way.
Right. Right.
I can tell you how I'm not going to get beat by Garrick Hayes, and that is I'm going to control where the fight is at, and my submission defense is great. I'm sure he'll test it, and I'm excited about that. But I'm just going to keep the pressure on. My cardio is unquestionable. And I'm just going to push his cardio. Wherever it ends up is where it ends up.
Nate, real quick before I let you go, do you have any sponsors you'd like to thank, and is there anything you'd like to say to the fans?
Well, I want to thank Advanced Sports Labs. I want to thank, Team Oxendine. Rick Conde, Chiropractic here in Johnson City, does great work. If you're ever around, Tyler Mitten at the Coliseum. And just, any fans, friends of the sport, even if you hate me, I'm good with that. I'm just glad that, the sport's getting the push that it's getting. And, that's really it. I want to thank the XFC for having me back again. I know a lot of times they're not overly lenient about how your record's starting to get before they stop using you. So I'm glad to get another shot at the XFC.
Nate, thank you for taking the time to talk. I really appreciate it. Good luck October 18th at XFC 26 against Garrick Hayes.
Thank you. You guys have a good one.